Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. This video's been a long time coming. I received this dot card from Rosa way back when I did this review on the Rosa granulating new watercolors. They came out with 10 new colors and 8 of them were granulating. And so I did a specific video just on those colors. You can find that on my YouTube channel. But when they sent me this to review, they also sent me a dot card of the full range. Now, I've reviewed Rosa watercolors before. I bought the cardboard set of 12 for like $15, and I was wowed at how good they were because, I mean, 15 full half pans or 12 full half pans for $15, that's unreal. So after I liked how good those were, I actually purchased a set of 21 modern colors. And then there was some duplicate colors, so I took out the duplicate colors and put them in my drawer for replenishing this set when I use them up. And then I added some of the box set colors that I already had in there. So that gave me like 27 unique colors there. I did sneak a little half pan of Quin Rose in there because it didn't really have a good Quin Rose. It had a magenta, but it was just a little bit too purple leaning for me. But again, love the paints. And these actually sat upstairs on my I call it my fun art desk because it's my art desk where I don't work. I just kind of like will work in my sketchbook, or I'll go out on the balcony and I'll paint out there in the summer. So I got a lot of use out of this tin. I brought it downstairs because I will rotate different sets around. The set that's up right now is mostly Paul Rubens with a few Daniel Smith Permatic colors in it. And I've also reviewed this set I purchased on sale for $10. This is their Rosa Studio set. I don't necessarily recommend their student grade studio set here, but it was only 10 bucks and I was really curious about it. So I would say skip this unless, well, watch the review and see what you think of the review, but in general, my opinion on the studio set is to save up a couple more bucks and buy the professional because their professional paints are generally very affordable. And then also when this was on sale for 10, the 24 set went on sale for, and there's their 24 basic set went on sale for 20 on Amazon, so I snagged it. Now I want to do this full swatch because every once in a while these sets go really cheap on Amazon and you can really get a steal of a deal. So I'm going to show you what this set looks like. The package came a little banged up and I'm just destroying the box here, unfortunately. Oh my goodness, I'm not helping its cause at all. I think maybe I opened it up the other way before I get, oh, right here. I actually thought this palette was really interesting. It reminded me of the Yarka plastic palette I had from way back in the 90s. But again, the thing I like about this palette is that if I want to use these half pans in my metal tin as I use them up, I've got this great palette where I could put gouache or I could squirt watercolors in. They're all individually molded, their own shapes. So I don't know, I really love this palette. I thought for 20 bucks to get 24 full pans of watercolor I love, plus this palette was just such a steal. So yeah, I just want to mention this because sometimes you get some really fantastic deals on this paint. Probably has to do something to do with the exchange rate between USA prices and Ukraine prices, but it seems like they go on closeout, or go on sale every once in a while. So yeah, I think it's good to have a nice variety of information out there. So like I said, I have reviews on those previous 4 sets, the set of 12. Actually, I don't think I reviewed the set of 21. I just have used it. But the box set of 12, the new 8 colors, or new 10 colors, I mean, the student grade, and yeah, I like this paint. I think it's a great value. Would I say it's the best watercolor in the world? No, but for the bang for the buck, I think it's really good. It's kind of similar to White Nights. So what we're going to do here is we are going to swatch out the dot cards, and I'm going to swatch it on the paper I typically swatch on, which is Fabriano Studio. It is the 25% cotton watercolor paper. It's kind of a middle of the road. I feel like it's a nice, I'm just going to put a drop of water on those 2 whites just to get them woken up a little bit. And also make myself a little bit larger of a swatch to do my whites on. I'll probably come back to those because I'll come back to those so I have a chance to make sure that ink dries. But I want to keep my swatch in the arrangement of the swatch cards so that I don't have to write everything down on the paper. I can just staple this together, and then if I get a chance to buy some open stock colors, I'll know what I want to buy. There are some Etsy stores that sell Rosa open stock in pans and tubes. I think they come in 10 ml tubes or the full pans. I've only used them for from the pans, but that's a nice option if you want to, if you want to do that. I also want to kind of get a little bit of that paint out on the swatching paper as well, just so I can see it. So this first color is Naples Yellow. It's a mixture of PY42, which is yellow ochre, and PW6. Now, one thing that I don't really understand, hoping I can fit all that on one page. One thing that I don't understand on their swatches is that it says organic pigments. So I don't know what they mean by that, because they do have some inorganic pigments such as cadmium, cobalt, iron oxides, things like that. So I don't know what they mean. And I think they have some synthetic pigments too, so I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. I think I'm just going to kind of do a stripe. I love their cadmium yellows. That's Cad Yellow Medium, PY35. Rosa does have a lot of cadmiums in their sets, so if you want to avoid cadmiums, like maybe you're getting the paint for a child and you don't want to have that, you know what I should do? I should start it darker and fade it over. That's what I should do. Go more mass tone over the black stripe just so you can see. Yeah, like you might not want to get cadmiums if you are buying this for a child, just because a little care needs to be taken when you're working with cadmium colors. Or if you've got pets that like to drink your paint water. I'm curious as to the opacity and mass tone, so that's why I want to go dark over the white swatch. Right now, maybe I'll add a little bit of water there to blend into. I think I'm going to run out of space on this though. Okay, matter. No, this is cadmium red medium. Oh, the stuff over the swatch. I find it. I want to look what's underneath the swatch, but the information is over the swatch. Oh, that's a beautiful color. That is PR108, which is your cadmium red pigment. If you want to avoid back runs and soak up any little puddles. I imagine people will be putting this on to go to sleep too. That's fine. I don't mind. The next color is Madder Red. That's not one of my favorite Rosa colors. It has a very, it dries kind of, if I recall, it dries kind of bloody. You know, it has this beautiful, cool, bluish undertone when you start off, but I find that it's very similar to Alizarin Crimson, the true Alizarin Crimson. This is a mix of PR177 and PR264, so it would be more light fast than Alizarin Crimson. Next we have Opera Rose. I have 2 buckets of water on my table. One is for getting fresh water for a wash, and the other is for cleaning my brush off. This opera looks very dark. This is a mixture of PR122 and then a fluorescent pigment, probably BV10. It looks very magenta, so as it fades, you'll get less of the fluorescent glow and more of the magenta color. In fact, yeah, this looks more magenta. It'll be interesting to see how this looks next to the magenta rose. But yeah, these dots are pretty generous actually. I thought that I'd get a swatch and that'd be about it from these colors, so that's kind of a nice surprise. That's not a super strong color. I'm already getting a back run there because I did not pull out my little puddle well enough. Next color is, and I'm going down this row and then I'll go down the middle one, so there are other yellows or other oranges. I'm just trying to keep this in line with what I have here. Now we've got Quinacridone Violet, which is a mix between PV19 and PB15, so it's a quinacridone rose plus a phthalo blue color. I like to see nice big patches of color just to be able to go by. Oh, and on these, it'll tell you what's granulating and what's a natural pigment. Like the cadmium red medium is a granulating color, although I'm not seeing a lot of granulation in there. I do know it can granulate. And yeah, obviously those are natural colors, the iron oxides, the cadmiums. It says the opera rose granulates. I'm not really seeing a lot of granulation. Maybe I need to add a little more water there and add a little more pigment. And we can see if we get any granulation. And that's where it's handy to have these this information. And since I have it on the dot card, I'm just gonna keep these together. Just have the larger swatch for my own interest. The next color is olive green. And it is a mixture of PG17, which is chrome oxide green, PY1, which is a fugitive yellow, and PBK7. So let's look at what this looks like. The colors, it only has a 2 light fastness rating, and the way Rosa does their light fastness is a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being the worst, 3 being the best. This will fade out to kind of a dull pea soup green, I am thinking. Yeah, it'll fade. That yellow will fade out, and you'll get more of that pea soupy color. It's not a bad color though. I'm surprised that doesn't granulate at all. Next color, bright green. That's PY151, which is a green gold, I believe, and PG7, which is phthalo blue. That's a really... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not what this is. This is PG8, which is... I've also heard this called Russian green, like if you buy the White Knights or Yarka watercolors. That also has a light fastness rating of 2. I've honestly never had a problem with this pigment because I've used it. I had a set of Yarka back in the 90s, and this color was in there, and I loved it because it's such a pretty, almost sap green. It's kind of like... It's very similar to a sap green or a hooker's green, but it just seems a little bit more natural looking to me. I like a sap green though, honestly, but I'm not as crazy about hooker's green. Anyway, and it's got a poor light fastness rating, but I've never seen that to be the case in anything I've painted and hung up. But anyway, maybe take it with a grain of salt, always. I live in Maine, I'm very far from the equator, so I'm not exactly going to be getting as much sun exposure as typical. Now this is bright green, PY151, and PG7, so that's like the green gold plus phthalo green blue shade, that is. That's kind of an artificial looking color. It's not one of my favorites. Sometimes you see this called May green, probably because it's kind of like that springy green. It's not a bad color. There was a time where I used this color a lot, but that time was long ago. Next we have, and there's nothing wrong with using it. Use whatever colors you like. It's no bad color, good color. Ooh, that's gorgeous. This is turquoise, PB15:3, which is a phthalo blue, plus PG7, which is phthalo green. It kind of is that nice deep turquoise, very transparent. So if you wanted a turquoise and you didn't want a cobalt turquoise because you didn't like the opacity of the granulation, this would be a good option for you. Very similar to Sea Glass by Da Vinci, which is also another beautiful color. Next we have cobalt blue, which is PB28. That's a true cobalt. So if you do not wish to have cobalt pigments, you would want to skip this. This is a granulating color and a natural color, meaning it comes from the earth. It comes from a mineral. Yeah, I don't know why they say organic pigments. I do not know what that means, because it's not like that triangle versus organic pigments is listed anywhere here. That's kind of a weird, I feel like that's like when you go to the grocery store and it says all natural, gluten-free. I mean, some things are like, like when they put gluten-free, but like this thing, it's an apple, it never had gluten, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm always like, I always call out sus marketing. That's a pretty cobalt blue though, man. Do I have cobalt? Do I have the cobalt? I don't have it in my other set. I wonder if I have it in this one. Ah, darn. Yes. Oh, it has it in here. I'm so glad I bought this set. I like it because you get a high quality paint, you get a good amount of it so it's not precious, and it's affordable. Of course, by the time this comes out, who knows what the price on these will be. Maybe I should, part of me wants to zoom in, but you know what, if you're watching this on a phone, you can like pinch zoom, and you can get right in there, which is a nice feature. And if you're on a computer, then you could just go full screen. So I think I'll do that just so that I don't like zoom in so much and then forget and go out of focus, because that happens when like I'm kind of in the zone here, and I'm sure people are watching this to fall asleep, so I'll try not to make any loud exclamations. This is gorgeous. This is just your typical phthalo blue. It's called bright blue, PB15:3, which is a phthalo blue. I'm just going to blot off my brush and drag it out a bit. Very pretty color. So you can see that color right there. That's made from this plus phthalo green. So pretty. I find their colors to be pretty strong. My one probably criticism is that it does seem like you make dents in the pans a little quicker with this range of paints than some of the other ones that I've used. But everyone's different. Every brand of paint is different. I also find the same thing with Schmincke. Like I tend to make a dent in the Schmincke paints pretty quickly. This is yellow ochre. Yellow ochre for me is a very indispensable color. I use it almost everywhere. This one's a mixture of PY43 and PY42, so it's got the natural iron oxide and the synthetic iron oxide in it, I believe. Although there's an N next to it as if it's a natural color, but I believe one is natural, one is synthetic, and off the top of my head, I can't tell you which is which, and honestly, I can't tell the difference, so I don't think it really matters, but it doesn't matter to me. Maybe it matters to you. But yellow ochre is just such a beautiful color. I feel like it really tones other colors down a little bit, especially since I love to paint plein air, which means painting outside, if you haven't heard that term before. And in Maine, that's such an indispensable color. I feel like we see this color everywhere. This color is madder brown, and it is a mixture of PR101, which is an iron oxide. Kind of, you see it. Oh gosh, that's gorgeous. You see it in Venetian red. You see it in Indian red, English red, where it's named after these different places where they've mined the pigment. It's a very reddish. Sometimes it can be kind of soupy, and sometimes it's very clean. Like this is a very clean version. And this also has PR264 in it, which is a red pigment. This almost has this kind of like this bloody look to it. Oh, I wish this granulated. This is such a pretty color. That's really nice. Madder brown. I wonder if I have that in any of my sets. Oh, that's such a pretty color. I have English red. That might be one for the buying. See, they know what they were doing sending me a dot card. They're like, this chick's gonna buy all our colors. And that's honestly, that's probably my biggest peeve with dot cards. It's like, you buy a dot card, and you spend, $20 or whatever they cost, and then you end up buying all the paint. It's like, this is a promotional material. This is promotional material. You're gonna, people are gonna buy them once they start playing with them. So you might as well just give them the dot cards because they're gonna spend the money, or give them a rebate or something. If they bought a dot card for $20, give them a rebate for $20 off their next purchase. Now this is burnt sienna, PR101, and generally if I'm buying a burnt sienna, I prefer a PBR7 one because it'll be a little bit less red and usually a little bit more, a little bit stronger, but this one seems plenty strong. Winsor & Newton also uses PR101 for their burnt sienna. It's, it's preference, just personal preference. Some people prefer the PR101, some people prefer the PBR7. So if I'm looking at a line of paints and I'm trying to choose a brown, like I'm just going to buy a limited palette so I can review it. Now, I mean, if it was just me for personal use and I wasn't on YouTube making review videos, I would just buy an interesting color that I don't have. But if I'm reviewing, I try to get colors I'm very familiar with so I can evaluate them across brands a little bit better. And actually, I have to say that burnt umber is not as pretty as their burnt sienna. It feels like it's a little bit weaker and a little bit soupier. But just going by the pigment number, I probably would have chose burnt umber just because I prefer PBR7. But I think this almost looks like it's got some yellow ochre mixed into it because it's just kind of It's kind of dull for just a straight PBR7. I have noticed sometimes, and I can't say for sure, I'm not a scientist, I don't work for them, but there has been a few instances where I think they got their pigment codes wrong on their watercolors, like on their new colors, their new granulating colors, which we'll get to towards the end. They list those as PBK7 as the black in them, and the black is like the granulating color in a lot of those mixes, and PBK7 isn't granulating. So this one here, Mars Brown, is a mixture of PY42, PR101, and PBK7. Now this is strange because Mars Brown, I'm trying to think of what pigment it typically is, but Mars colors generally do granulate, and this one, and it's usually not a mix. So I would avoid that one personally. A lot of times with the Eastern European colors, and even some of the European made colors, their earth tones can be kind of weak. This last one on the list, Black Grape, this is a mix of PBK7, PB19, and PB3. So we've got two violets, one violet being a fugitive violet, and then we've got PB19, which is a pretty, oh, that's a pretty color. It's a pretty standard, stable color, and PBK7, obviously, it's a stable light fast black. They're giving that a light fastness rating of 3, although maybe there's just so little of that second violet that you don't have to worry about it. I don't know. This isn't probably one that I would get if it doesn't have any special properties that I can't get elsewhere, you know what I mean? It's pretty enough, but I probably would pass on that one. So there's our first row done. I will bring this up close to the camera so you can get a good close look at these colors. All very transparent, which is nice to see. Before we go any further, I want to get our white swatched out. We're going to start with the titanium white that was at the top of that row that we just did. And I just want to swatch it on the black. Now we'll be able to see how opaque it is as it dries, but titanium white should be pretty opaque. I'm going to go right over the edge of that black swatch just so we can see. And I have had that water sitting on it. Alright, now zinc white, which starts off the next row, is, and I'll just kind of tip that a bit so you don't see the light. That looks pretty opaque. It looks like it could be a winner. So the zinc white is a mixing white. It is not as transparent. I mean, it's not as opaque. Oh my goodness. And it's great for, like, if you want to tone down the color of a color. So you want to lighten a color, but you don't want to reduce its viscosity by adding tons of water. So let's say you have madder red and you want to make it like you want to make it a very light pink, but if you keep adding water and water and water, it can get just so watery that it can be tough to control. So then that's when you would bring in the zinc white and you would add it to that, because the zinc white would help you dim down the color without changing the consistency of the paint as much. So there is a use for it. A lot of people are like, why would they bother putting that white in there? I don't think it's the most useful color. I don't think either white is the most useful color in watercolor, but that's what it's used for. And I think very few people understand that. I wasn't taught that. I was just taught use a white of your paper, don't use white. And I think a lot of people are taught that to not confuse them. But when you do get into a situation where you need to control your viscosity, then that's a way to do it. It's not going to be useful to everyone. The next color is cadmium lemon. This is one of my favorite colors in watercolor because it's got a lot of strength. You can add a lot of water to it to lighten it up. But it is a little bit opaque in mass tone. You can see that as we're going pretty thickly over the black line. But the thing about cadmium colors that I love is that they're so light fast, they're so strong. They do cost more, but I feel like you get a really good value because you don't have to use as much. And the Rosa cadmium colors are beautiful. I think we're going to get to a point though where we won't be able to get cadmium colors anymore, because there's been a lot of kind of fear mongering, I think, in in terms of cadmium safety, and I think it's overblown. But I think the paint company manufacturers don't mind at all because they're expensive pigments, and if they can make a hue and charge the same price, like Winsor Newton has done with their cadmium-free colors, why wouldn't they, you know? This is cadmium yellow deep. Now this is a mixture of two cadmium colors. It's got PY35, which is cadmium yellow, and PO20, which is cadmium orange. And so it gives us a beautiful orangey yellow. Cadmium orange is a beautiful color. You can see that over there. It's also a mix. I kind of wish they would have just done the PO20 for their cadmium orange, but alas, I don't rule the world and they don't listen to me, so. Pretty colors. And your more opaque colors, you tend to get less of a gradation when you pull it up with water. Now, you obviously can achieve a gradation, but it's more likely to fill an area, I've found. And again, this is cellulose. Well, it's 75% cellulose, 25% cotton Fabriano Studio, and it's just what I swatch on. You can swatch on arches for all I care. You do you, but this is what I do. I do it for consistency and for affordability. And then I keep my swatches in one of those book bins from Dollar Tree. I used to have them in a binder, but my binder got a little out of control. So I keep them in a book bin, and it works great. I can just pull out the swatches I need when I'm comparing, and that's pretty much what I use them for. I keep a little swatch in my tin of all my paints, and that's what is the most useful swatch for me. But when I'm reviewing products or comparing, or just trying to see what I have from a different line of paints, I can do that pretty easily. That is Flame Red PO73. I'm not very familiar with that pigment, I have to be honest. It has a light fastness rating of 3 stars, which is excellent according to Rosa. But to be honest, I'm not that familiar with PO73 myself. Okay, the next color is Bright Red, and that is a mixture of PO73 and PR254, and that is rated 3 stars as well, which is their highest rating. It's very pretty. It's almost like a Pyrrole Scarlet. And I think PR254 is Pyrrole Red, so that would make sense. This is a very neutral looking red. It doesn't look too warm. It is looks a little opaque, so it might not be your best mixing color or your best like primary if you were just trying to stick to one color for a primary. Opacity tends to make things get a little bit muddy when you're mixing. But gosh, it is pretty. It's almost like a Naphthol Crimson. It's a beautiful neutral red. Next up we have Carmine. Carmine is a pinkish red. It was originally made from beetles. This is PR170:1, and I am not sure if that is. I gotta stop. You know what? I'm gonna look that up because I'm so curious about that. Hold on one momento. Alright, good news, this is not beetles. PR170:1 is Naphthol Crimson, and it actually has a pretty good light fastness rating. They're calling it Carmine here in their line, and it's a beautiful pinkish red that is very transparent. So, nice alternative to alizarin crimson. Our next color is Magenta Rose, PR122, and you may remember that pigment from Opera Rose where they added the fluorescent to it. So this looks just darker right off the bat. I've heard some controversy about this pigment, but I mean, Handprint calls it a top 40 pigment. He thinks it's light fast enough. I can't remember the man's name that runs that, Bruce McAvoy maybe. He has a wonderful database, but yeah, I've never had any issues with the magenta either. Oh, I'm seeing the granulation now on the Opera. It must be in that fluorescent pigment that helps it break apart. But yeah, now I see it. That's beautiful. All right, never mind. On to the next thing. I wonder if I have that in any of my palettes. I'll have to double check. I mean that brand. If I have that brand, I wonder if I have it on this one. Carmine Matter. I don't see it there. I might have it. No, I got magenta. I know I have magenta in the modern color set. Anyway, next one is lavender. That is PB29, which is ultramarine blue, PV3, which is a violet that I've always thought was not light fast. Ooh, don't those look pretty mixing together? And PW6, which is white. And they don't say this is a granulating color, although it does have ultramarine as its first ingredient, so I would think there would be some granulation there. We shall see. And of course, if you want to get more granulation, the appearance of more granulation, you want a lot of water. So I'm going to put a lot of water into this swatch just to see if it does granulate. And I'm going to blot that a bit because even though it's pretty, it's not going to help my, knowledge of the colors if I need to go back and look at that dot card. All right. I think I can see it granulating a bit already. And I'm just going to spread that a little bit there so I have it on this card as well. The next color is sap green. Sap green is one of my favorite colors. And they make theirs with a mixture of PY110, PG7, and PBK6. That's interesting. So we've got a yellow, a phthalo green, and a black. Generally not a huge fan of paints that have black in the mix because I think it unnecessarily, or white in the mix, because I feel like those do desaturate the color. And it's like if I want to desaturate a color and how to do that, I don't need the paint company helping me make mud. I can make mud just fine on my own, thank you very much. It's a pretty color. I don't like it as much as their olive. Their olive is pretty. Their olive does have a black in it as well. This is a 3-star light fastness, and the olive does not. I think if you took if you took the sap green and maybe added just a smidgen of cadmium orange, that would give you a beautiful sap green. It's fine. It's fine. It's not what I think of when I think of sap green, though. Chromium oxide green, that's a granulating color, PG17. It's also my least favorite color in the whole wide world. It's kind of this baby poop green, and I absolutely do not like it. And this is no exception. Yeah, I bought like a whole tube of this when I was pretty new because I thought it looked like such a pretty earthy green, and it's just like so drab and opaque. It just looks like, I don't know, you remember those olive green khaki pants that were popular in the 90s, like when grunge was a big thing? Yeah, it's just kind of like dull and doesn't move very much. I don't like this color very much, but it does granulate, so you might mix it with something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more vibrant, maybe transparent, and then get the granulated effect from that. Like if you mix that with the green gold, that could be quite lovely. I mean, there's use for every paint. It's not like I throw away a tube of paint because I don't like that particular color. I can find a way to integrate it and to use it, but just on its own, that's like my least favorite color. I'm going to add more water though because I want to really urge it to granulate. All right, next color is emerald green, PG7. This is your typical phthalo green. Oh, wow, that's pretty. That's your typical phthalo green blue shade. That looks almost even more. Maybe it's just because I just painted chrome oxide green, which, reset my eyesight or something. Like, when you eat really healthy for like a couple weeks and then you eat some corn and it tastes like candy. You reset your taste buds. Chrome oxide green resets my eyeballs, and then other colors look better. But this is a very useful mixing color. One of my favorite mixes is to take emerald green with a little cadmium orange and make a beautiful kind of sap green color. Let's do that, actually. Why don't we? Let's take some of that color. I have an old set of Cotman watercolors from the 90s, and their viridian hue is just so beautiful. Oops, I dipped into the wrong water there. Maybe add just a little bit of cat lemon. Just kind of makes a pretty sap green color. Actually, it was like cat orange and viridian, such a pretty combination. And man, maybe I think Cotman actually had a cadmium orange. They had true cadmiums and cobalts back in the day. Back in the day of the 90s. Here we have royal blue, which also looks like very similar to lavender or a periwinkle blue. And not surprising because it uses ultramarine blue as its first color, just like the lavender did. And then PW6 and PW4. So we've got a zinc white, we've got a titanium white, and we've got ultramarine blue. So I generally avoid colors like this because I can mix them. But, I mean, sometimes they're fun in a palette just because they will give you some convenience or, you know, the granulating ability. But the granulation is coming from the ultramarine, so you can see that lavender granulating too, even though they don't say it's a granulating color. Maybe they've got standards of how much it has to granulate before they'll call it a granulating color. I don't know. Or maybe there's just a typo. Who can say? It's pretty. It's not as useful, especially in a limited palette, but if you are making like a larger palette or you have specific reasons for any color, you don't need to justify them to anybody. Use the colors that you want to use. This is ultramarine blue, PB29. This is another one of my indispensable colors. It's in every palette I own. And I find to paint the main landscape, you need ultramarine, you need yellow ochre. Those two just are non-negotiable in my opinion. And ultramarine blue is the color that I have to refill the most often on my palettes. So I tend to buy it from Da Vinci where I can get those really big tubes of it. And I love their French ultramarine. It's so gorgeous. I also love Turner's ultramarine blue deep, which is another steal of a deal bargain color. And I would recommend that color to anybody looking to try out maybe Turner watercolors. Try their ultramarine blue deep, try their benzimidine brown. Those are a couple that really stand out to me. Yes, that's going to granulate nicely. PB29, good old ultramarine blue, tried and true. The next color is hit or miss. That's blue indanthrene or indanthrene blue. And I bought a tube of this from the Blick watercolor line. And I have to say, I was very disappointed in it. But then I had some in a Lucas palette, and this was before Lucas was sold to De La Rowney, so I have no idea what their indanthrene blue is like now. But the one in the Lucas palette was lovely. It was such a wonderful option if you didn't want to use Prussian blue and you wanted an earthy, cool blue. And it's very light fast. PB60 is a wonderful color. The Blick version I had, which I believe Grumbacher Finest is who makes the Blick watercolors. It was just kind of dull. I felt like the tube wasn't all the way full. It was just like a disappointing experience that's the only Blick watercolor I've used. I haven't wanted to buy any others since then, so I haven't, but yeah, this one actually, I think I might have their indanthrene blue in another palette. There seems to be a little bit more lively, more similar to the old Lucas ones. No idea how the new Lucas ones are. I bought one Lucas tube to refill the cobalt turquoise to refill a color that I had used up in my tin, and it was not even the same pigment anymore. I was so disappointed. But Jerry's did give me my money back, so that's where I bought it. Rulian PY150. This is not the I want to say this is not the customary Aurelian. Aurelian is usually PY40, and that PY40, also known as cobalt yellow, I believe, can go brown over time. And this, I don't think, PY150, I don't think has that same affliction. So I think that's probably a better option because it does seem to have that beautiful color. Now, I think this color actually looks quite a bit different. If it's anything like other PY50s I've used, if we water it down, I think it changes its undertone. So the more I water this down, the more cool it looks, and the more I use it thickly, the more orange it looks. So it looks warmer when used in thicker applications and cooler when used in thinner applications. It's extremely transparent. I think it's a favorite of, oh gosh, now I'm drawing a complete blank. No, there's a famous watercolorist, so Aurelian is one of her favorite colors. Now I cannot even remember. But it's kind of a quirky thing because you look at it in your palette and it looks brown, but then when you paint it out, it looks kind of golden. But then when you wash it out light, it looks lemon. So it's kind of a quirky color. It might be a little difficult to get the hang of. This is why we swatch our watercolors and we keep a swatch in our tin because we can sometimes not know what a color's going to look like. When we see that in the tin, we may think we're getting like umber, and we get this bright yellow. The next color is English Red, and that is PR 101, which is an iron oxide. And we talked about that pigment earlier when we were swatching this area here. English Red is a semi-opaque, earthy red. So it's kind of like a brown. This brown here is made from the same pigment, but the way it's treated, it makes more of a sheer, transparent, more brownish color. And the way this color is treated, it makes more of an opaque, redder, soupier color. And that's the neat thing about pigments. The way they heat them up, the way they treat them, totally different effects you can get. I know there's it's Gamblin Oil Colors. They have cleaned up a place where I think it was some sort of maybe paper mill or mine or something. Anyway, there was all this iron oxide sludge, and so they sent people to clean it up, and they made paint from it. And they have a line. It's like 3 different colors that they've made. I think it's like a yellow ochre and a burnt umber and a burnt sienna. They've made from these from this waste product, oil paint. It's just really neat. You know, talk about one man's trash is another man's treasure. I think that's wonderful. You take waste from mining and turn it into art materials for us to use, and so it doesn't pollute. This raw sienna is a mixture of PBR7 and PY42. Sometimes you'll see raw sienna that's PY42 or PY43, and it looks very similar to yellow ochre. Sometimes you see PBR7. I think a typical raw sienna, like a true raw sienna, would just be PBR7 and be like a transparent, more yellow version of burnt sienna, basically. Less red, more yellow. This is listed as a natural color, not a granulator. It does seem to have some sedimentary qualities here, though, as I'm looking at it in the larger swatch here on my paper. Oh, by the way, the English Red, they have listed as granulating, so it'll be interesting to see how that dries out. But this looks a little soupy for a raw sienna, in my opinion. It looks a little sludgy. Generally, I will choose a raw sienna over a yellow ochre when I want a really transparent, earthy yellow color. So just something to make a note of. The thing is, it's so hard to tell when you're buying a raw sienna or a yellow ochre what you're going to get. I mean, yellow ochre is pretty easy, but it's kind of tricky on the raw sienna. Are you going to get a really transparent one? Or are you going to get a soupy looking one? And one of the things I loved about the old Cotman watercolors, they had a beautiful raw sienna that was granulating, and I actually have some of that in my granulating palette. This color here, Royal Brown, PBR 25, also known as benzimidide brown. It's a gorgeous, transparent red-brown color, and they say this is granulating, so hurrah. I actually did buy that one from Turner as well. Same pigment. This is such a pretty color, and was very affordable. A lot of the earth tones are affordable compared to like some of the more brighter colors, and definitely compared to the mineral colors. The next color we have is Warm Gray. I typically don't buy grays. I've got some Payne's grays in sets, and that's enough for me, honestly. Although some of the super granulating colors coming out now are a little exciting and convenient for like urban sketching, and I would definitely add one of those to my palettes. So this is a mixture of PR 254, which I believe is a pyrrole red, PBK 7, which is lamp black, I believe, and not granulating, so where are you getting your granulation from? Warm Gray, and PW6. I have a feeling that the black may be mislabeled if it truly is a granulating color, and it may be PBK11. And I think it's like continuously mislabeled in there across their line, or maybe full of beans, and they've got some magical PB7 that I don't know about, or maybe their big vat of PB7, somebody wrote the wrong pigment on it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It does look like it's granulating already, though, and it is a lovely color. It does have a little bit of a red undertone, but I'm surprised that they have PR 254 listed first because, and PW6, the white, listed last, because it does not, you think it'd be much redder to have those proportions correct. Unless the black is just, and the white is just so strong that it overcompensates for that. It just doesn't make sense for the, because the way the pigments are listed, it's most prominent to least prominent. So whatever is listed first, you'd have the most of. just like ingredients on a label. At least that's how it's supposed to be. Now this color is black green. Ooh, that is so dark. I'm going to have to water that down so we can really see the color here. I'll try spreading that out. It's pretty. I don't want to go over any of my information at the bottom of the swatch. This is PB15, which is a phthalo blue, PBK7, which is a black, and PG7, which is phthalo green. I haven't seen any PG36 yet. Maybe that's coming along the next row. That's phthalo green yellow shade. We've seen a lot of phthalo green blue shade. That's a pretty color. I probably wouldn't buy it myself because I would just, you know, mix up shadows to go with whatever I'm painting. But that's just me. You know what? I have to say their chrome oxide green is better than any chrome oxide I've used before. So, could it make me love chrome oxide green? Maybe. Maybe. Whew, we are cruising. We're cruising. We're going to do this last row here. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to go get a drink of water first though. Be right back. All right, so let's look back at those white swatches too, because they've had a chance to dry. Titanium white, much more opaque than the zinc white, as it should be. And look at that chrome oxide green, man. If I end up buying a tube of my least favorite color because theirs is pretty, that will be funny. That will be funny. That will be a testament to Rosa watercolors, I guess, because that's, I don't like that color, but man, theirs is awfully pretty. I actually just looked through when I was taking a break. Okay, so story time. I was looking for a tube of chrome oxide green. It's like, I know I have some because it's come in sets before, and I found a tube of Renaissance chrome oxide green. And so I opened up the tube and it had some binder separation, which is not a surprise because that happens quite frequently with granulating pigments, and especially in the Renaissance line because they have a lot of binder in them. And so I went to look in my junk drawer for a toothpick, and I cut myself on the awful sharp Schmincke like insert tins, one of the inserts in there, because they're super sharp. Schmincke Academy tins, like the old ones, the 12 tins, used to be so sharp. Anyway, I cut myself on it, and I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna get tetanus. So I like sprayed my finger with alcohol because that's the only thing I had down here, and then I put a band-aid on it. But anyway. Oh, gotta suffer for your art. Gotta suffer for your art, friends. All right, we're going to start off with Naples Rose, and that is a mixture of PR101 and PW6. That's an interesting combination. Haven't seen that one before for Naples Rose. Now Renaissance, I mentioned them. They are a paint company from Poland. They're also a very affordable line of artist grade watercolors. Now I would say, well, gosh, it really depends on the color and whether you're getting them in pan or tube, because there's a lot of variation between the paints in that line, in my opinion. But they're also very affordable, and you also see a lot of the same pigments, I think, because they're in the same part of the globe, basically, so they probably have a lot of the same sourcing. This is not a color that I would typically pick up. I like Naples Yellow. I love Core's Naples Yellow. But this, I mean, I would just take my PR101 and mix it with some white and call it a day. I don't think that's unique enough, personally, for me to justify it on my palette. I'm going to scoop that underneath there. Can you use that in frame? Okay. Next color, Cad Yellow Light. That is always a favorite, for me anyways. I think I prefer Cadmium Lemon just because it's a little bit cooler, and I like to use a split primary palette. But if I could only have one yellow, Cad Yellow or Cad Yellow Light would be a really good option, although it is a little bit on the opaque side, so you could run into some muddy mixes if you're not careful about what you're mixing, or if you're new to color theory. But man, I just love cadmium yellow. I know I'll probably get some hate in the comments for promoting cadmium colors, but as far as longevity, you really can't beat it. PY35, just as I would expect. I don't know how they can do those so cheaply. The only thing I can think of is that maybe with other paint companies going with cadmium alternatives and not dealing with cadmium, maybe there's a lot on the market right now for cheap. That's the only thing I can think of. Now this looks like a quinacridone gold. I think this would be a really popular color. PY110, single pigment color. That's just really beautiful. It's like an Indian yellow. I'm not that familiar with PY110, to be honest. The Fugitive ones stick in my mind, so I think this is a pretty good, probably a pretty good one. This is, and it also seems like with the pigment numbers are higher, a lot of times they're more light fast. Now that doesn't always correlate, but a lot of times that's the case. This is a very transparent color. I wouldn't expect any granulation. Really pretty. I'm gonna make sure I don't go too big on my swatches or I'm not gonna be able to fit them all in. Next color is Cadmium Red Light. And this we have PR108, which is cadmium red, and then we've got a PO20, which is cadmium orange. So when you see cadmium red is a pretty warm color just on its own. Well, it's a warm leaning red. And then when you get cadmium red light, that is a more yellow leaning or more orange leaning red. Now this one is a granulator, so it'd be really interesting to see how this one granulates. If you're into the granulating watercolor trend, then finding a few colors that granulate and then mixing them with other colors you have are a good bet. And if this cadmium red light granulates, as it says, I'm gonna add a little more water to that. It'll probably give me some backgrounds, but I really want to push that granulation if we can see it. This would be a really good option because the roses are much less expensive. Plus you've got a primary color, pretty much primary, that you can mix with other things. Plus granulating reds are hard to find. So if that granulates well, then that might be a to buy for sure. I'm just going to tip that back a bit. Hopefully we can get some granulation happening. Next color is Madder Rose. That is a mixture of PV19, which is quinacridone rose, and PV254. PV254? I'm wondering if that might be a typo. It might be PR254? I'm not sure. Ooh, it's pretty. Got a lot of blue undertones. That would mix a nice purple. It's more red than their magenta or their opera. It's got more of that, more of a red than a purple look to it compared to those colors. Very pretty. Our next color is Coral. That's a new one. That's not new to them. It's new to me. This is a mixture. Oh, it's pretty, isn't it? It's PR4. Which is Tuladine red, I believe. Not a very light, fast color, if I recall. But they are giving it 3 stars. PR2, also not a very light, fast color, as I recall. And PW6, which is a white. So this, to me, it almost looks like a deep shell pink. Darker, you know, it is a nice coral. But I question the light fastness of this because both of those reds are not known to be light fast. So yeah, obviously do your own research. There's a couple great pigment databases out there. There's many actually. The ones that I refer to the most is handprint.com and Art is Creation Pigment. If you just search up pigment database or watercolor pigment database, I'm sounding like Bugs Bunny. You will find all the information. But yeah, I would doubt that that's light fast. But boy, oh boy, that's a pretty color. That's a real pretty color. That'd be nice in a sketchbook, illustration, macaron, painting. Next we have Quinacridone Lilac made with PV19. PV19 is another one of those colors that it can range from a pure pinky red all the way to a violet or a mauve. It is a pretty color. This is what I would probably call mauve. That's a nice color. I like that color too. Lovely. Our next color is Violet, PV23, also known as Dioxazine Violet. That is exactly what I would expect from that color. This is a color I have in my travel palette. I'm considering not refilling it when I use it up, but I've been using the same like half pan of it that I don't even think I filled the entire way for years and years because it's so slow wearing. I use it for my super darks in landscapes. Which I know probably sounds kind of weird, but it's such a cutting dark color that it's so crisp and transparent. It's better than black in my opinion for those really dark darks. But I don't know. I don't feel like I use it enough to justify it. But then again, if I'm using it for those really dark darks and a little goes a long way, I mean, I guess it probably should stay on my palette. But anyway, Dioxazine Violet, super vibrant. Now they're only giving that a 2-star of light fastness, and I believe Dioxazine Violet is a much more light fast color. So That's interesting. I don't think I agree with that. I think there may be some typos in the thing here. So here we go with mint. This is a simple mix of PG7, which is our phthalo green, plus PW6, which is our white. So obviously, if you have phthalo green and you've got white, titanium white, you can mix this yourself. And this is now this is a PW6, not using a zinc white or PW4. This is affecting the opacity. If they used a zinc white with, oh, let's do that. We can do that. Teachable moment. That's a pretty color. All right, let's take our scrap again. I've got my, there's my scrap of the Renaissance chrome oxide green, because I was curious about that. So let's make that color using, we're going to make that mint color, but we're going to do it with zinc white, and we're going to do it with titanium white. So they used PG7, and let me get a little palette. They used PG7 and PW6. So PG7, where do we have that? Right here. So we'll make ourselves two. And it might not be like, this does not, their mint looks a little bit more blue, so they may have had a slightly different PG7 for that, but let's just do that. So zinc white first and foremost. That is going to be the more translucent one. Our mixing white. Hopefully I can get enough. It's going to use all that up. They stamp their name underneath where the paint goes. Okay, so this is with the PW4. Oh, that's awfully pretty, isn't it? Oh, you know, I should have done probably a line, but that's all right. Oh, you know what? I think I probably had enough room. I can do it down here. Just do a little stripe of it there. And then we'll do one with a PW6, which is our opaque white, which is what they used in their mix of mint. And let's do a little stripe of it here. So you can see it's much more opaque. Whoops. It's much more opaque. Let's bring this over. Much more opaque with the PW6. That's one on top. And of course, the way I did it here, I did that one on the bottom. Goodness, right? That's the one I just did. Okay, let's make some notes. I'm not gonna remember this. This is, I'll just put the 4 and the 6 there so I know. And now let's swatch it next to the actual mint green. I mean, this is a very easy mix. So, you know, just to show you, you don't need to buy every color if you've got the ingredients for the color. So this is the Rosa mint. Actually, looks closer to the PW4 to me. It could just be I had, probably because maybe they have more of the green. And there it is next to the other two. Either way, they all look awfully similar. All right, yeah, so you know what? You can always mix it yourself. So if you want a more luminous mint, go with the PW4, go with the zinc white. If you want a more opaque mint, go with the titanium white. But isn't it nicer if you have that ability of on your own to make the color exactly the way you want it, to the exact opacity you want it? Wouldn't you think? I think so. I think that gives you a much better option. Although, and even looking at those swatches, I have to say, I think that the it looks closer to the PW4 one. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a typo. I really think I've seen some typos in their swatches, in their paint information on their labels before, but you know, I'm not a scientist. I don't know what they're doing. I gotta say, allegedly. I don't know. I don't have any qualms with their paints, honestly. So next we have Cerulean Green. This is a new one to me. This is a mixture of PY150, which is Cerulean Yellow, or their Cerulean. Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. And PG7. Now this is all right. I like that. This is what I want from a sap green, thank you very much. Right here, this right here, this is what I want for a sap green. And so that I've swatched it out like this, I can be like, okay, if I'm going to order a pan, then I would choose a Cerulean green rather than sap green, or rather than hooker's green or olive green, because that to me is more like what I want in a sap green. So that's helpful. I should scan these and put these on my blog. I think I'll probably do that, so that way you will have that information. The next one, of course, they probably have this on their website too. The next one is Cobalt Turquoise, PB28. Now that's weird, because usually your Cobalt Turquoise is PG50, but Turner uses their Cobalt Turquoise, or maybe it's just called Turquoise, is PB28, and it's a very similar color, very pretty. Now, Lucas has changed their Cobalt Turquoise to PB28, but it's kind of chalky. So I guess it really just depends on the brand whether you're going to like a Cobalt Turquoise that's PB28. This doesn't seem super pigmented, but I'm pretty sure I've got Cobalt Turquoise here. I wonder if the pigment number, if I have the pigment number on this. I don't have it on there. Because, okay, we're going to do a comparison, because I'm thinking that I gotta clean off that pan. Look at that, so dirty. I need to be a better watercolor pan housekeeper. All right, let's get a little swatcheroo of the one from my pan. Actually, I think that looks pretty close. All right, so that's the one from my modern set of core watercolors, and this is the one from the dot card. I guess it's the same. I don't know, this one looks a little bit more green. Huh. Does look, no, it's pretty darn close. Never mind, it's pretty darn close. Yeah, so PB28, that's a granulating pigment. I'm going to put a little bit more in there, though. I think maybe it was just kind of hard to reactivate it from the dot. When you've got the big half pan of color, it's much easier to get a brush in there to agitate the pigment around. I think that's probably the deal with that. I was looking online when I took a little water break there, and I wanted to see what these paints were going for. They're still a bargain. I mean, they're more than they were. Like that 24 set that I showed you in the plastic case is now $41 on Amazon, and it was I bought it for $20, but that was a closeout 50% off sale. Individual pans of it are under like $2.81, I think, on Jackson's for a pan, and like under $4 for a 10 ml tube. So really affordable. If you're comfortable shopping with Jackson's, there's no reason you shouldn't be, I don't think. If that's someplace you can order from affordably, then that would be a good option if you want to just pick and choose some colors. That's a granulating cerulean blue, PB36. That's another one I really love for landscape painting. It's got a beautiful texture to it. It's really beautiful for coastal paintings, ocean painting, seascapes, because that's kind of that granular mist that you see in the sky around here anyway. So I've added that to my palette in recent years and have really enjoyed it. I have the M. Graham version, but I think it's a very useful color. This next color is just called Blue. It's PB15, which is a phthalo blue. This looks a little bit warmer than other phthalo blues. I think a PB15 can be more of a red shade, and PB 15:3 is more of your green shade. But to tell you the truth, in mixes, I really don't notice that much of a difference between many of the phthalo iterations. And I bought a tube of the phthalo blue red shade, and honestly, I didn't find it different enough to justify a spot on my palette. That was just me personally, but everybody's different. Everybody has their own preferences. The next color we're going to look at is Indigo. Indigo is generally a mix, and if you want to avoid getting a mix, I would suggest Indothrone Blue or Blue Indothrone, because that has that really rich color. It's actually right there. We swatched it earlier without having mixes. You can have a single pigment palette. I think there's 60 single pigment colors in their range, maybe more since they added the 8 that we're going to swatch at the end here. But this is a nice inky blue-black. It's made from PB15:1, PB19, which is that violet that we've seen in so many of our mixes, and PBK7. And sometimes your indigo will be made with ultramarine blue, and then it will have a little bit more of a granular texture to it. So, yeah, I'd rather just mix my... Well, this is indigo, not Payne's Gray. I was thinking Payne's Gray, actually. It's a pretty color. I think I prefer the Indithrone because you can always take Indithrone and add a little black to it if you wanted to, or even a little brown to it if you wanted to make it blacker. That's some pretty... Oddly enough, that has some pretty green undertones, which I think is coming from the PBK7. And I don't see any violet in there at all. I'm seeing the blue and the green. I'm going to spread that out a little bit lighter so we can see what it dilutes out to on that. Next we have Quinacridone Gold, which is a mix of 3 colors. And this is a color a lot of people are kind of crazy about. They discontinued the pigment, or basically factory stopped making it because it was no longer in demand from the automotive industry. It's our kind of an earthy but transparent yellow gold color. And this one is a mixture of PY151, PY42, and PR264. And I think that our traditional quinacridone gold is more sheer and more glowy. Yeah, your quinacridones tend to be very sheer and bright and vivid. I do like quinacridones. They tend to stain, if you don't mind that quality. They're pretty, but I was never big on the color quinacridone gold myself. It just seemed a little too acidic looking for me. But, oh, how am I going to fit all those colors? We're going to have to squeeze them in. Luckily, these aren't ones I like very much, so it's okay that we don't have that much room. Kaput Mortuum. This is a granulating color made from PR101. It's more of a violet. It looks kind of like a Mars violet, which is also made from PR101. I do want to have a fairly... I'm going to do a bigger swatch of this one because I want to see the granulation on this. Is that... I wonder if that's in their new set of 8 colors. Nope. But I'm sure they probably use that pigment. Very pretty burgundy brown. I think this one was also referred to as mummy brown, where they used to actually use ground up mummies to make the color. And then the other ones, we're gonna have to sneak them in there together because I'm running out of space and I don't really want to do another sheet of paper for these guys. I'm gonna do another sheet of paper for the new 8 colors in the range. So let's do sepia. This is not, this would be kind of a fun color just to use on its own, I think, and do some line and wash maybe. Their sepia's PBR7. It's got a very green yellow undertone. It's not a favorite of mine. I'm just going to do a little swipe of it. It looks very similar to their umber. Did we not swatch a color called umber? Oh, I'm sorry. This is umber. Oh my gosh, no wonder it looks like umber because it's umber. It's just kind of this green baby poop type of color that I don't really care for. Then we've got sepia, which is a mix of PBR7, PBK7, and PR177. So this actually is a lovely color. It has a richness, I think, from the brown, from the red. But I'd still, for my earth tones, I would much rather have a single pigment PBR7. I'm mumbling, I apologize. That's pretty. Next color, we have Payne's Gray, which is a mix of PB15:1, PB19, and PBK7, which is the same makeup of indigo, but I'm assuming indigo's got more blue in it. I'm not, some people are really super duper crazy about Payne's Gray. I never was. I use it sometimes, but it's never a big favorite. Now this is neutral black, probably also known as neutral tint. You should be able to add it to colors without it changing the undertones of the colors since it's neutral. Oh shoot, I went over my information there. PB Pigment Blue 15:1, PBK7, and PR177. Seems like something else had that mix. Oh, it's kind of similar to Sepia. It's got that PR177, that madder red in it. But you don't really see the red in there. It must just be to neutralize the blue, I guess. It is a fairly neutral black. It's not bad. It would be pretty for a line and wash. It's kind of inky. But let's take a quick close look at these, and then we're going to do our granulators. And I think I will scan this. Oh, you know what? Let's go like this, and then we can see the whole thing. I think I will scan this and put it on my blog and put the dot card, a photo of the dot card on my blog, so you can have all that information if you want to make any notes, or if you need some help while you're selecting colors to purchase. Like I said, Jackson's has open stock, and I think that would probably be the way to go once you've gotten. I mean, the sets are so affordable. If you get a set that's got most of the colors you want and then pick and choose some open stocks, I think that's probably the most affordable way to go. So now let's do the eight new colors. And I'm looking at my Renaissance mix. Not as granular and pretty as the Rosa. That's interesting. All right, so I have done a full review on these colors here, but let's go ahead and swatch the swatch card while we're at it. The first color is Magenta Gray. These are, I think, meant to rival the Schmincke Super Granulators because they've been such a popular product. You know, I'm going to turn it. I'm going to turn it this way. I don't want to put my hand in. Whoops. I don't want to put my hand in the thing. You know what? I'm just going to refocus. I'll be right back. I touched the button on the camera, so I'm like, I got to make sure that I haven't messed anything up. This is a beautiful color. It's got PR122, which is magenta, and it's got PG17, which is chrome oxide green. I want to get lots of water in there so we can really push the granulating abilities. Next we have Jade Green, which is a mix of PB28, which is a cobalt blue, PBK7, which is like lamp black, I believe, and PY42, which is yellow ochre. And I strongly think that the blacks in these are PBK11. Because some of these, black is the only granulating color. Not this in the case of this, because PB28 granulates, but... Next up, we have Azure Green, which is a mix of PB15:3 and PG17. So we got the phthalo blue. Oh, that's pretty. The phthalo blue and the chrome oxide. Actually, yeah, the chrome oxide green. I get confused sometimes with Viridian and chrome oxide because Viridian is PG18. And that's more of like, it looks more like this color here. Viridian looks more like that color. So I was a little like, wait a minute, did I misremember my pigments? It's totally possible. Totally possible. Maroon Brown, which is PBR25, benzimidide brown. I have to take a run at that word. And PB23, which is our phthalo. Isn't that interesting? That's a color you get when you mix those two together. I feel like I need to mix that to double test it. And PB23, which is Dioxazine Violet. So Dioxazine Violet and benzimidide brown make those colors. I've got to test that. I got to put that to the test. So let me see. That right. That can't be right. Let me see. So we've got benzimidide brown. They call it royal brown. I got to mix that here. Actually, let's do it on a palette and swatch it out. This is fun. Who's sleeping? Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a hard time sleeping, and so I'll put on a video like this to lull me back to sleep. And the other color is PV23. Are you kidding me? Ain't no way. You know what? Look at that. I'll be darned. Maybe a little bit more brown. Well, I stand corrected, my friends. That does make that color. Ha! Look at that. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. That worked. That's a beautiful color. I'm gonna have to remember that mix. I never thought to put those two colors together, and look at that. That's pretty. Next color, golden brown, PY43 and PBR7. This does not look golden to me. This looks very poopy. I've changed a lot of diapers in my day, so I know all the tones. This looks like it's got black in it, doesn't it? Golden brown. This does not look very golden to me. I'll have to compare it with the swatches I have in my tin from the pans. Next up, we have Cobalt Gray. Oh, this was a pretty one. This is PR108, which is cadmium red, PB28, which is cobalt blue, and PBK7, which may or may not be the black that is in this mix. I'm so skeptical. I don't mean to be, but I am. I actually did ask them about the black, and they did say that no, it's PBK7, and I'm like, man, that really, because I was seeing like the black granulate out, like settle out of the mix, and it looked like the black was very sedimentary, very granular. Oh, the next color is violet black, and that is a mix of PV19. You can clearly see that color in there. PBK7, allegedly, and PR108. So PR108 is a granulating red. It's cadmium red, but it sometimes doesn't granulate that well. PBK7 is not a granulating color, and PB19 is not a granulating color. So that PR108 would have to do some heavy lifting if the PBK7 is a PBK7 and not a PBK11. Oh, you know what I think I did? I think I used a magnet on some of these, and they were magnetic, and that's how I knew the black was wrong. Got a magnet right here. Is that strong enough? Oh, that's not doing anything. Could just be my magnet's too weak. Or it could be full of beans. I don't know. You be the judge. You be the judge. I'd have to review that footage. You can review the footage too. I'll link it down below. Next one, Carbon Black, PBK7 and PY42. Neither of those colors are granulating, but it says they are. These dot cards are pretty once you swatch them, you know, and they get a little messy, in my opinion anyway. I'm going to put a dab of water on each of those little metallics. I thought it was interesting they came out with metallics. You can mix them with other colors too to make your own custom metallics, which is kind of fun. All right, and I'll maybe just kind of scooch a little bit of that over there so my little swatch there is a little bit more info on them. Okay, so gold, that's rewetting pretty well. I used a Taklon brush for the dot cards. I didn't want to use anything super soft and have it add way too much water to the cards, or way too much, or like get damaged having to agitate these to get the pigment up. I could show you the gold and silver swatch from my pan set as well. That's getting some good granulation. I really think that's PBK11. And I mean, I don't go into the weeds as much as other people do on the pigments, but I find it interesting. I want to know what I'm buying. Or in this case, what is being sent to me for review. Those look really weak there, but yeah, they actually, I mean, they catch a light good. They're all right. They're not too bad. I would definitely pre-wet any of your metallics before you try to use them. And they're going to show up more on a black paper, so this isn't exactly the most fair look at them. I feel like I'm getting way too much water. But those little buggers are kind of, that metallics are kind of harder to re-wet. They need a little, I should have dropped some water on them before I began. As far as these granulating colors here, I really love the jade green and the cobalt gray and the carbon black. Those are probably the ones that give you the most bang for your buck as far as their 10 new colors that they came out with. Boy, yeah, they have some really nice granulators just in the regular line, like the cobalt turquoise, the cerulean blue, the ultramarine, both of the lavender, and what do they call the other one? Royal blue. But again, those are all coming from ultramarine blue, so you could just get that pigment and go a long way with that. Kaput Mortuum, that's a really nice one as far as granulation if you're looking for that effect. But overall, I mean, the colors are very transparent, very vibrant, very affordable. I really don't think you can go wrong with Rosa watercolors, especially if you're on a budget and you want to be able to get a professional line of paint for less money. I had some and I grabbed some more when they had the big sale on Amazon. Keep your eyes open for stuff like that. Check Jackson's. They're probably going to have the best price, but if you're, for whatever reason, Jackson's doesn't ship to your area, I think they ship pretty much worldwide, but I know some places in Europe, since Brexit, may have a harder time ordering from them. You might be able to order directly from Rosa in Ukraine. Not the Ukraine. I apologize if I've said the Ukraine. I tried to break myself of that habit. But yeah, they're a solid buy in my opinion, and I actually like the chrome oxide green, which kind of pains me because I feel like I really want to add that to my collection, and it's my least favorite color, but I just love the pattern of the granulation there, and I'm not even like a big going for the granulation trend, but there you have it. I like that. But yeah, this was fun. I'm usually not one that's crazy about the dot cards, but it was really fun just to hang out and swatch these out, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it brought you a little bit of peace and tranquility to your day, and maybe you learned a little bit about this line of paints. Maybe it's something that would benefit you adding to your style. Look at those colors together. Aren't those really pretty together? Look at those three. Those three just look so pretty together. I would want to redecorate my living room with those colors. That's pretty. Makes me feel like I'm at the beach. I'm not. I'm frigid. I'm filming this in February in Maine. I don't know when it's going to go up, but yeah, I'm definitely feeling these colors right here. I like them. In reality, my world's looking like these colors down here, and I'm not here for that. I'm here for this. Maybe this. But there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoy these real-time swatching videos. And if you're asleep, well, I hope you have lovely dreams. Thanks for watching. Till next time, happy crafting. Bye.